female dog on the other? Like, do you feel like you tend to have like one extreme or the other? Like, do you fall toward one extreme or the other?
Do you mean personality-wise or like negotiation?
No, just personality. Yeah.
I can definitely get to both ends.
To both sides.
I probably the latter.
Yeah.
You're that way.
Over here.
Pushover side?
Pusher.
I'm a pushover? Where's that
No,
mean?
you're like a wallflower, but you know what you want. So maybe in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, so the reason I bring that up is that's a problem, and I want Brandon to kind of talk about this, having worked with women, that I think that we have to confront early on, because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to be in the sweet spot. Because even if you don't, which most of us actually, I don't think we are actually on either extreme, right? We're generally somewhere in the middle, but it doesn't matter what we actually are. What matters is how people perceive us. And there are going to be outside influences, society and culture, that are affecting how we are perceived. So, there are some people who think I'm as quiet can be. And there are some people who just think I'm an outright witch. And depending on what context you meet me in, you may think different things. But I'm constantly mediating that. Because when I am trying to negotiate with someone over something, if I'm using this, in air quotes, if I'm too aggressive, I'm less likely to get what I want, even if I make the same ask in a less aggressive way. And it's a real challenge. Do you want to, and let me just say, by the way, this is not just a situation where men impose this onto women. I know personally of a situation where a woman lost a great job opportunity where there was an offer on the table. So, the offer's already out there, the compensation's decided, the benefits are decided, a start date is decided, and the question is, will the woman get a half day off a week like she had at a previous position with the same company? So the last sticking point was a half day a week off, which she had previously at the same company. Would she get that? And her direct supervisor was a man. He was the one that she was gonna be dealing with, like actually in the job. And then there was an HR person who was a woman involved. And that half day issue, by her bringing that up and the way she brought it up, the offer was withdrawn. They didn't say, no, you can't have the half day off, but you can have everything else. They took the offer off the table altogether. And guess which person it was who did it? It was HR. So it was the woman who did it. So it happens both ways. However, I would like Brandon to comment on observations you made. You don't have to, don't say anything you're uncomfortable with.
Well, I was given an offer for grad school, but one of my first questions was, can I defer? And like you bringing that up like made me nervous because I haven't responded about if I'm accepting the offer or deferring the offer, and I have time, but I don't know what else to say. I just got super nervous hearing you say that.
Yeah, well, and you said that you have time, and that's a big thing. Like, if they've given you until a certain date to make a decision, or there's just a custom about when you can have to make the decision, that's a different scenario, because I think then it's expected, and you can always check in with them. Like, I think that's one thing, you don't want to be bothersome, like with the frequency that you check in, but I don't think there's anything wrong if you wanted to reach out and just let them know that thank you again for this offer, and I'm still contemplating it, and whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with reaching out in that way.
Yeah, I haven't. They've reached out to me actually to see if I have more questions, and I checked in to say just making sure that deferment is an option, and then I asked like funding questions, which are just natural questions you ask. But I'm gonna probably send them my defer email this weekend.
So they confirmed that you could defer. Oh yeah.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. If they've already confirmed that you can defer.
Open communication is the best way to figure out that one, because that's a little less tedious, I guess. Like, you're younger, you're applying for grad school, a lot of it's contingent on financing. You don't just figure that stuff out overnight, so you may really want to go and you could say yes, but you got to pay for it. I don't know if that's your situation, but they're completely understanding of that, I would think, you know, they get paid, so. I wouldn't hesitate, and if you've got a deadline, use it. I had a school project due not too long ago, and I had it done a couple weeks ahead of time, but I still waited till midnight the night that you could turn it in, because I'm gonna change my mind. So I wanted to take advantage of it. I didn't wait till midnight, but I turned it in that day, so I take advantage of deadlines when people give them to me, so.
You know what I just thought about?
What?
So the story that he told about the PA negotiating over $2,000, that was with the same HR person and the same medical provider who then lost the offer. So the PA who tried to get the extra $2,000, it was her first position with that company, left that company, applied and got the offer to come back, was negotiating with that same HR person for that half day off, and it was that HR person. So the point being, the HR person then had a history with her. Like, okay, this is a person who's gonna continue to make these asks, so really it did end up disadvantaging her. Yeah, I don't know, I hadn't thought about that before.
Do you know if she got what she wanted with a different company?
No, she did not. Well, no, she did. Sorry, she did. Yeah, and that's, by the way, that's the other piece of this is, okay, so you make an ask that you think is reasonable, and they say no. Do you want to work there? So I think, was it Guma who asked about the living wage? Am I saying your name wrong?
Goma.
Coleman, I'm sorry. But someone asked about the living wage question.
That was me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Cheyenne.
Yeah, and so if you legitimately know that you actually need X to live on,
Yeah.
and you tell them that, and they don't meet that, I would seriously question whether that's a place that you want to be,
Okay.
because then you are setting the expectation from then forward about how they're going to treat you. Because, you know, we teach people how to treat us. And if you teach them that that's okay and you still will accept that position, then the next time they, for instance, have the equivalent of needing like another part-time person, but it would be in a role that's what you're already doing, it's like, well, why don't we just get Cheyenne to do it? You know,
Yeah.
and so then there we go again with the slippery slope of it getting worse and worse for you because of the one small thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful with that though, because if you have nothing and you need something, you may need that job. And you may just need to keep your feelers out for a while and find something else to supplement that or move on to, so I wouldn't let it be a deal breaker.
Right.
It's all circumstantial.
Well, that goes back to the options,
And
keeping
small
options.
demand.
Yes.
If you have many options you can apply to that you might be a good candidate for, then you could go ahead and leverage higher. But
Yes,
if it's like the only position you're finding,
yes.
just take what you can get.
Well, and let's talk about for a second, have you all been in interviews where they ask you what your salary or your wage requirements are?
Yeah.
Okay, do you generally tell them? Like they say, how much do you need to make?
I've talked to an alum for advice in negotiating salary, and she said try not to say how much you want for as long
I
as you can.
110% agree. I absolutely agree, and especially in a first interview. Because in your first interview, you are still getting lots of information. Like, it's, you know, like the situation, you don't even know that you want the job yet, right? And in some instances, what they're doing at that point is they're fishing for like maybe how much savings they can find if they hire you over someone else. So I absolutely agree. Avoid that if you can.
So how would you defer that if they ask you during the first interview?
Yeah. Well, I'm a real fan of like complimenting people. So like that's a great question. I don't know. I need to go back and really look at it now that I know more about the job and what the responsibilities would be. I want to process all this information. But that's a great question.
Could you like compare it to like say your last job you made like $10 an hour and like, well, the previous job I made $10 an hour, I'd like to make more than that? Or is that be still too specific?
I think it's too specific.
Okay.
And here are my thoughts, and I know Brandon has some thoughts too, but any number, let's say that they have in mind that they wanna fill the position for $10 an hour. And you say, I need $12 an hour. Well, you're not gonna get the offer, right, cause they can't pay you $12 an hour. Or you say, I need $8 an hour. I'm just using random numbers, of course. They're not gonna say, oh, you need $8 an hour, but we had planned to pay 10 for this position, so we'll just start you at 10, okay? Is that good with you? Like, that's not gonna happen. As opposed to, I don't know, I need to reflect on that, I have a lot of information to integrate now before I would be able to give you any answer about that. And they're still sitting there at thinking, okay, we were gonna try to fill this position for $10 an hour. I think that's the better place to be, because wherever you start, like if you throw out the number where you were paid before but you want to be paid more now, they're going to be anchored mentally at that lower number, regardless of what they want to pay. That's how our minds work, right? That they're anchored down there. So wherever you move from there is you're always, in their minds, the first thing they heard is going to stick, the principle of primacy. So if you want to get like real hoodoo voodoo on them, here's what you do. Find some number from your resume, from your experience, from if you're doing research. I forgot, someone's doing a research thing, right? So if you can find some number in there that is way high and doesn't have anything really to do with your wage at all, and integrate that into your conversation, then that's their anchor. So like when Brandon, I don't think he did this on purpose, but when he was talking about himself at the start and about like AUP structure, do you remember a number that he talked about?
13,000. Oh.
Sorry, yeah, 13 states.
22,000?
Yeah, 22,000 employees. What was the infrastructure number?
11 or 12 years.
Yeah, and what was you remember the investment that they're making?
Oh, something billion.
Yeah, billion. Yeah, okay, it was something billion. Okay, so if you can find some number like that, that's relevant, like, like some statistic about Hollins. Like how many women has Hollins graduated?
Oh, I should know this. We're tour guides.
How
Almost
many
all
like
of them, right?
graduated in
Not
total?
all of
Yeah,
them.
in total.
Over like since 1844?
Yeah, how
At
many?
least over 60,000.
Yeah, like it's in I can't even tell you.
No, maybe not
Yeah.
that many.
60,000
40,
is a lot.
40,
I don't know.
20.
I mean, you
considering
can say
size, yes, but then
you
also
can say
lack.
60,000 because where are they gonna find that data?
90% of our students end up in some type of post-grad situation.
Okay,
That's a statistic.
yeah, that is a
Report.
good statistic. But I want you to find a number that's higher than what you want to make. So let's say, theoretically, we don't know what the number is. Let's say it's 60,000. But just let's use tech for an example. I went to tech and I know that they it seems like they graduate 60,000 every year. So let's say tech has graduated in its history 240,000. Let's just say. And I go into an interview and someone's like, well, how did you like tech? And I'm like, oh, it was so great. I know it was so big. I know they've graduated 240,000 students, but I swear when I was there, I felt like, it was very individual and it was specific to me and I got a great individualized education. At an entry-level position, I don't expect to make $240,000, but now I've anchored them there. Like, that's the number they heard. It doesn't have anything to do with money, but that's their anchor. So if I were like saying, okay, do a little homework, that's what I'd say, do your homework. See if you can find some statistic. It can be about Hollins, it can be about maybe the town where you're from, or the city where you're from, or the country that you're from, whatever, and use that to your advantage.
And you can use it anywhere in the conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Is there? It seems like after a certain point they become like too far related.
Like unrelated?
Yeah. Is there like a stopping point?
Well, you don't do it, you just do it once.
Well, yeah, but like
Mhm.
if you would like to bring up like the people in my city, I think I work here because like a million people big.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm like, yeah, I grew up in Albuquerque. It's about 1 million people.
Mhm.
Like, would casually entering that into conversation sort of like reduce the impact of it?
No, not if, I mean, you always have to work to do a connection.
Mhm.
So like if they're saying, well, why are you applying here? And it's in a city with 1 million people, and you're like, well, you know, this city, like my hometown, has 1 million people. So it's not something you can fully prepare for, you just have to kind of know that you want to find a place for it. And again, the more you interview, the more you're gonna have, you know, more comfort level with actually talking about that stuff.
Mm.
It's gonna feel more natural. I mean, that's the problem is like first few interviews, they don't feel very natural anyway. And that nerves and it's new and whatever, but the more you practice, I think the more integrated it will be.
Quick little fun fact is I'd never had a salary job when I got my first job at AEP. I'd always just had like summer hourly jobs, and I didn't really know what that, you know, several $1,000 salary, how that converted to what I'd done in the past. So if you have that experience and you think, all right, I'm doing something for $12 an hour, multiply that 12 times 2,080, and that'll give you your salary. Because 2,080 hours in a working year, so y'all may have already known that, but that helps you convert the two. So when somebody gives you a salary of $60,000 divided by 2,080, you'll get your hourly figure. You'll be like, I can do that job every day for every hour for that wage. So that may help you out, being able to compare apples to apples.
He's a fund of practical knowledge.
What's your horoscope sign, Capricorn?
June 20th.
I think it's Gemini.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Hmm.
I'm right on the.
You keep
Right
saying
on
he's
the cusp
practical.
between Gemini and Cancer.
I'm right. Yeah, I'm right on
Yeah.
the edge of them. That's like funny territory, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
Well, we've kind of, in large part, kind of talked at you, but we have maybe like 10 minutes or so. Do y'all have questions? I know we haven't really addressed everything that you brought up, but anything you want us to specifically get at?
Can you talk more about the car situation as well?
Oh, yeah, that's great. Okay, so first of all, this sounds terrible, and sorry to tell you, but the two things. Do you need the car? Like, that's the first question. Do you need the car? Do they know you need it? Okay, so it's all a matter of what are you going to show them? Like, what information do you know that's relevant for them to know, and what information do you know that you just should keep to yourself? Because there's a value in you knowing it and them not knowing it. Also, bluffing, which is something that people do in law all the time. It's not really a lie, it's just kind of throwing out like, this other thing may be true. Like, let's say you looked online at 6 different dealerships for the car you want. You know, you can say something like, I've been looking around. Like, you don't have to say it, just meant that you like clicked on some websites. You know, for all they know, you physically visited it. But you know, I've been looking around, and this is what I believe about the price, which gives them more of a sense of urgency, right? Because they're not the one and only place that you have stopped, and they probably will not be the last place that you stop. I would give yourself plenty of lead time, so that if you are going to need the car, you're not going to be going there on the day you need it. And you need to know what you can pay for it before you walk in there. So it's a preparation thing, and really a lot of negotiation is preparation. You need to be armed with as much information as possible, and you need to disclose that information only when it is strategically advantageous to you. It's like just super practical, the end of the month is a great time to go, because they have sales expectations that are imposed on them from above. Like if you're at a company dealership as opposed to like a used place. And so they are going, if they have not met those expectations, they're going to be more pressured to sell you something at a lesser cost. So that's one thing. This sounds so terrible, but I think it's true. If you can, have someone with you. Preferably an older white guy. I mean, like, if you're around here buying a car, that is just what it is. And I would not, you know, like when they sit you down and they're like, okay, sit here, I'm going to go talk to my manager, and they really go in the back and have a smoke or whatever. You just need to be ready to let them know that you're not gonna sit there. I would not do that. It's just a waste of your time.
New car or used car?
It was a used car. I was looking for.
Private seller?
Most likely, like my mom was pushing me to go to a dealer because she thought that was the easy way, but I was too afraid to go because I didn't want to go through that conference.
Yeah, it's completely different when you're dealing with just a private individual, because you
True.
both have competing interests. You wanna pay as little as you can, and they wanna make as much as they can, so I'm really curt about it. I'm just, what is your bottom dollar? Well, no, sir, please stop. What is your bottom dollar? Let's just get to that, and we will not waste anybody's time, so I approach it like that.
Yeah, I'm much more like,
I don't like to negotiate.
where are you from, and where's your family from? But I think to his point, you need to know what you can afford. Like before you start that conversation, you absolutely need to know what you can afford. Like bottom line, period. Because then you know when you hear something, because what happens is if you're like, well, I can pay 1,000, and they're like, well, I can give it to you for 1,100. Like, well, 100 doesn't sound that much more than 1,000, but if you know you've already calculated the most you can pay is 1,000, 100 is a lot extra. It's 10% more. So that's another kind of thing, so you don't get trapped into that. And then you can always have like the back call, where you're like, oh, my phone's ringing, excuse me. It's like, oh, I've got to take this, and just like head on out. Yeah.
So if they say that they need to go talk to their, like, how do you tell them that you're not gonna sit there?
I'm not sitting down.
Yeah, just say it.
Let's negotiate this right now.
Can you just say like I actually have somewhere to be, can we just
Yeah.
speed it
do
up?
this?
Yeah, and you can set it up that way too when you get there. Like, I actually only have 15 minutes, but I just want to take a look and see what you can do on this. The thing most of the time in negotiations, and I think this is true with cars too, time is on your side. So if you have not created an urgency, like you don't have to do it today, then time is better for you. It's better for you to create distance and space. So you go this one day, that's like the second, maybe like the 16th of the month, and you let them know that you're looking for this particular thing, you like this one vehicle in particular, what's their price on it, they give you a price, you write it on their card, and you leave. Period. And if they do a good job, they'll get your number, they'll get your name and number and ask if they can call and check in with you. And say maybe they call back the next day or the day after, and I'm still thinking about it, got a lot of stuff going on with school, exam week, blah, blah, blah. And just play it cool. Like, just play it cool and give them time to realize that you don't have any urgency to it. Because then you are like tightening the screws on them at that same time.
If it's a brand new car, just ask to see their invoice, offer them $100 more, and chances are you're gonna leave the car. Because they're not in it to make as much money off of that car. I know that sounds silly because obviously they are, but the more cars they sell, the more dealer incentives they get. So if it's actually a brand new car at a dealer, just offer them $100 more than their invoice. Because that's the only new car buying experience I had is when you bought that one. I never bought a new car. I've only ever owned 2 cars. But that's what it came down to. She had her price in her head, and the guy kept saying, "Oh, you're crazy. We can't sell it to you for that." Well, it turned out it was just $200 different than their invoice. So you budged $200. He proved it to you on the invoice. So just start that way. So I want to see your invoice.
And just try different things. And it kind of feels funny because we're talking about something like cars, but this is true for everything. Just try different things. Like, put yourself in a position where you can have it go wrong. Like, somebody the other day was saying they were at Starbucks or something and had ordered a drink and then just said, "Oh, can I have a free water with this?" Just see. Like, what's the worst that can happen? There are however many car dealerships around here. And at any particular one of them, there are many, many car salesmen. So, just try it and see what works for you. And I will say that, like, you saying that you're fearful of it, that's something that people would sense, I think, if you went there. So I think you have to find a way to be comfortable with how you do it. So you're probably someone who you may not feel comfortable saying, "I want to see your invoice and I'll pay you $100 more than that." Like, you probably have to work up to that. But you might feel comfortable saying, "Look, I'm trying to think, given what little you've told us about your personality, you might just wanna say, I'm just starting this, I'm not here to buy a car today. And that, again, is gonna create some distance for you and some space for you to look around and figure out what you need to do. You never wanna seem anxious or, like very urgent about what you're doing, cause that's an advantage for them rather than for you. Has anyone here bought a car? You and Sal spot your experience, Shane?
Oh, my dad was there.
Okay.
I didn't contribute a lot to this conversation.
Yeah.
Craigslist, you can find anything on Craigslist.
Yeah, I actually did end up getting my car from Craigslist.
That's the way to do it.
And that way, like, it's a lot better to, I did research on, like, how you go to a car dealership and stuff, and they were like, do a lot of research first about the price, and, like, if you're getting a used car, Kelly Blue Book it, so you kind of know what range you're looking at, and if you can do all the shopping online, then you can compare other websites to see if you're actually getting the best deal that's out there. And the car I found was, like, at a lower price on the range. For that car, it was already pretty low, so I didn't ask for a lower price, and it was like, that was the only car I found that fit my budget, and that seemed like a good car, so I was pretty, like, needy of it, too, to get into it.
You can do the same thing with jobs now. Glassdoor.com, y'all ever play around on that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, y'all are probably way more tech savvy than I am, but do that with jobs too. Do a lot of research.
Yeah, to find, like, a salary range.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
different geographic location. I know where we
Yeah.
got territory in Ohio, we actually pay our engineers in Ohio a little bit more than we do in Roanoke, just because the cost of living's higher.
Yeah, I think just to kind of close for you all, I think the best thing you can do while you're still younger and gaining experience is to do your prep work. That is how you are going to have an advantage in interviewing, with negotiating your salary, purchases. That's where your sweet spot is going to be. And you'll get, by the way, a lot of credibility when you walk into an interview and you can say, hey, I looked your policy up on this issue. Where did this policy come from? What's the origin? Or, yeah, this price is too high based on market value, fair market value. Like, that is where you start building credibility. All right, well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with the rest of the semester.
When's the last day of class? When's exam week? Same thing?
May
9th,
9th?
9th through the 15th,
Wait, what is
or the 14th.
Wait, isn't the 9th?
10th to the 14th.
Good luck.
I mean, I'm gonna do mine on the 9th, because that's when I'm gonna, like, write all of them.
Take home exams, papers.
Take home. We do independent exams.
Schools are great.
I saw someone post on Instagram, like, yeah,
Best
just
thing.
celebrated last day of class. I'm like,
What time do I go? I do back by 6:30.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I can also just, if you don't mind me taking your car, like, I
Yeah.
can go,
again.
and then definitely that way you don't have to leave. I wonder if I should go to Senate and announce my show.
You should.
Nah. Senate's a whole nother ballgame. I wanna be home by 6:30.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, take it easy.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice talking to you guys.
You too. Good luck with your
Oh, wait.
mom.
Thank you.
I hope. We'll find